It was the middle of summer, and the heat in Arizona was unbearable. My family and I had been looking forward to a break from the scorching temperatures, so when our family friends suggested a day trip to Fossil Creek, a well-known waterfall about 2 hours from Phoenix, we all jumped at the idea. It was supposed to be an easy drive, a simple day of relaxation away from the city, where we could enjoy the cool water and the quiet of nature. We packed up 2 cars with food, drinks, and everything we'd need, planning to follow each other on the road to make sure no one got lost. The drive started off just as expected. We left early hoping to avoid the midday heat, and the roads were relatively empty. As we got further from the city, the landscape changed from concrete buildings to open desert, then to the rocky hills leading toward the creek. The road was long and winding, but nothing out of the ordinary. An hour into the trip, we entered the Coconino National Forest, where the trees provided some shade, making the drive feel cooler. Everyone was in a good mood. My dad, who was driving our car, had the music playing, and I sat in the back with my mom, looking out at the endless stretches of forest. The car behind us, carrying our family friends, followed closely. Things only started to feel strange when we got onto the last stretch of road leading to Fossil Creek. It was a steep, downhill drive with sharp turns and no guardrails, but we had checked the route beforehand, so we knew what to expect. What we didn't expect was the eerie silence that settled over everything. No birds, no wind, just the sound of our tires on the gravel road. I remember glancing at my mom, who was staring out the window with a slightly uneasy expression, though she didn't say anything. Then we reached a particularly sharp U-turn. My dad slowed down carefully to take the turn, but the moment we rounded the bend, something went wrong. I heard a grinding noise, sharp, metallic, followed by my dad's voice, tense and controlled. The brakes aren't working. At first I thought he was joking, but when he pressed the pedal again and nothing happened, panic set in. The car wasn't stopping. We were still rolling forward, picking up speed on the steep decline. My dad yanked the handbrake hard, and the car jerked violently before coming to a sudden stop, just inches from the edge of the road. Before we could even process what had happened, we heard another noise behind us, a screeching sound. I twisted around in my seat just in time to see our friend's car making the turn, only to have the exact same thing happen. Their brakes failed at the same spot. Their car skidded forward uncontrollably before coming to a stop just like ours. Handbrake engaged at the last possible second. No one moved for several seconds. Then, both my dad and his friend stepped out of their cars to inspect them. My mom and I did the same, shaken but unhurt. The road was empty, no other cars in sight, but there was something about that spot that felt wrong. The silence wasn't just a lack of sound. It felt oppressive, like the entire area was holding its breath. The 2 men checked under the hoods, but everything seemed fine. The cars were both relatively new and their brakes had been serviced just days before the trip. So why had they both failed at the exact same moment, in the exact same place? As we stood there trying to figure out what to do, another car approached. A black SUV, moving slowly, cautiously. When it reached the turn, the driver hit the brakes, and nothing happened. Just like us, their car kept rolling until they had to use the handbrake to stop. That was when we knew this wasn't just a coincidence. More cars came down the road, and we started warning them before they reached the turn. Some listened and slowed down early, but others didn't, and almost every single one had brake trouble at that exact curve. Some people's engines even shut off completely. We had no cell service, no way to call for help, and no one could explain why this was happening. Then out of nowhere, 2 men appeared on foot, walking toward us from the direction of the waterfall. They looked like hikers, dusty clothes, backpacks slung over their shoulders, but something about them seemed off. They weren't surprised to see us. If anything, they looked like they had been expecting us. One of them, an older guy with gray in his beard, asked if we were having brake trouble. When my dad said yes, the man just nodded, like he had heard this 100 times before. He told us that on steep roads, brakes can overheat, causing them to stop working temporarily. His advice was simple: pour cold water over the tires to help cool them down. It sounded logical, but if it was just overheated brakes, why did it happen at the same spot every time? We didn't have a better option, so we followed his advice. We took water from a nearby stream and poured it over the tires of both cars. Steam hissed up instantly, and after a few minutes, the brakes started working again. Relieved but unsettled, we thanked the men and decided not to continue to Fossil Creek. None of us wanted to risk driving further. Instead, we went to a smaller waterfall nearby, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. But even as we sat there, eating the food we had packed, no one could stop thinking about that curve in the road. When it was time to leave, the sky had darkened and rain started to fall. The air cooled and the rain made the road slick, but we were hopeful that it would also prevent the brakes from overheating again. Still, when we got back to the turn, some of the cars had trouble starting. Their engines were dead until we pushed them past that spot. The moment they crossed the invisible threshold, their engines roared back to life, as if nothing had ever been wrong. It was like that part of the road had its own rules, its own grip over anything that passed through it. And then, just before we finally drove away, I looked back one last time. At the edge of the road, barely visible in the fading light, the two men were still standing there, watching. The drive home was silent. No one talked about what had happened. No one wanted to. But the question stayed with me long after we made it back safely. Why did the brakes fail in the same place for every car? Why did the engines die only at that curve? And who were those two men? I tried searching online, hoping to find stories about that road, about people who had experienced the same thing, but I found nothing. No warnings, no reports, nothing to explain what had happened that day. Maybe it was just overheating brakes. Maybe it was something else. But even now, years later, I still get chills thinking about it.